Thanks. As Rachel just said, our company's purpose is to create space where story happens, and our niche is bringing people together with world-class experiences. So it feels like a real honor to be invited into this group of people for a world-class event and tell some stories. So thank you for that, and congratulations to you both. I at least skimmed the whole book and pulled out one quote that I wanted to start off with here from the good book of Ken and Grace, chapter 6, verse something or other. It just so happens it's the exact same line that Grace read a moment ago, but that's why we're here. So I'm just going to repeat it. The agreement. I want you to be 100% honest, meaning be truly and freely yourself, speaking into what you want and how you feel. I promise you I will be 100% open to it. I will listen without reservation. I'll put my needs and wants on pause for you. In return, I will be honest with you, and I ask that you be completely open to it. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I graduated in the late 90s and went to work for my dad. I told him when I went to work for him, you have me for 2 years. After that, I'm leaving, I'm going to grad school, and I don't know if I'm ever coming back. Spoiler alert, I came back. I left and I went out to Colorado, got some master's degrees, started working in real estate, and notably, my daughter was born during that period of time. In 2004, I came back to Grand Rapids for my grandfather's funeral. And it was probably the first moment where I actually considered maybe coming back would be a great idea. I knew, however, that in order for that to be a healthy thing for me in particular and for our business, that I would have to completely change the paradigm of my relationship with my dad. We would have to transition from the typical parent-child relationship and be able to start to interact with each other as adults. And, you know, my dad is, I don't know how you'd say it, a guy of his generation. He is really smart, works really hard, very generous, absolutely committed to having a big impact. He is also stubborn, is a little bit set in his ways. He's very conservative, and he was someone who I was a little bit scared of as a kid in some ways. And so I came up with, if I'm going to accept this challenge and come back to the company at this later stage in my life and have a healthy relationship with my dad, a commitment that I made. And it was almost verbatim this. It was almost verbatim the words that I just read to you from the book of Ken and Grace. That I would be truly and freely myself and be able to speak into what I want and how I felt. So coming right back in 2004, from that moment forward, my dad and I started a ritual, a meeting pulse, I forget the group I'm talking to, where we've gotten together for breakfast at 8:30 a.m. every Wednesday morning without missing a single week unless there was either travel or sickness, and sometimes not even for that reason. And we have done that consistently for the last 20 years and have been able to use that time to talk to each other about maybe it's his golf game or travel or religion or politics, or sometimes we even talk about the business. But all of that time being able to talk to him really freely and truly as myself. And it's changed the script. And it's probably, even on the days in which we never talk about the business itself, the healthiest thing for our relationship and for our business is the trust and the understanding that we've been able to build between the two of us. It's tough working in a family-owned business sometimes. And that particular ritual or meeting pulse has been one of the healthiest things that we've done. I think notably about 10 years ago, my wife and I went through a separation. And I knew, even though it was going to be the hardest conversation I needed to have, that my dad was the first person I probably needed to tell about what was going on. And I did. And I laid it out completely honestly for him, what was happening, why it was happening. And to his credit, in fact, consistently through 20 years, he sat there and he listened with openness and without judgment. He responded by saying, "I love you," and in a rare moment, actually offered some vulnerability about some experiences that he had had in his past life, in his life historically, and built empathy between the two of us. Fast forward a few years, I come to my dad and I say, "Hey, I've got this idea. I'd like to build a theater downtown." And a little bit after that, well, maybe we should add a few hundred apartments, and maybe we should add 100,000 square feet of an office building, and maybe we should add a parking ramp, and maybe we should add our own restaurant and our own music venue. And he listened with openness, and not because he understood all of the details of the business, but solely because of the trust that we had built in the honesty that I offered to him and in the openness with which he received it. That is the only reason that the things that we've accomplished have been able to be accomplished. So it really works, guys. It really works. As Ken alluded to, it's tough to do. It's really tough to do. Many years later, I'm in my first full day meeting with Ken. I think it was our focus day. And he says, we're going through our accountability chart, I think. And we noticed that maybe my name is in too many boxes. Maybe it still is. And that probably there's an opportunity for someone else to step up. And Ken just says, "Hey, who wants it? Do you want to be in this role?" He says this to one member of my teams. And I'm like, "Ken, you're not allowed to say stuff like that. What if she wants it, and what if she's not the right person for the job, and I have to tell her what would stand in her way of being in that role?" It was a very uncomfortable moment for me. And, you know, in the next 2 years, I've really realized, well, of course you should step up if you want the role. And of course you deserve to know the reasons why you might not be the right fit for that role or what stands in your way of possibly stepping into that role. And it's a real challenge, but it's absolutely something that we all deserve in order to lead to a much bigger and richer world. And I'll close with this. There's a statue that's only a half a mile from here outside the Michigan State building that I've passed by in my car hundreds of times. It's a guy standing in a cage, right? Probably many of you have seen this statue. And I always drove by it and thought, man, that's a little dark and a little off-brand for a university. I recently became a downtown resident and probably walked past that statue for the first time and recognized that I missed a very critical detail. And that's that if this guy would be willing to just change his perspective, which can be really scary and feel very vulnerable, and turn around, he'd realize that the door to the cage has been open the whole time. And if you can step through that vulnerability, there's a much richer and a much more interesting world outside that we could all be taking part of. So congratulations again. I'm really proud of you guys, and I'm honored to be here, and thank you.
Awesome.